Machizu Uji is rolling an apple at the kitchen counter watching his father argue with his best friend outside of their store over whose mochi is the best. Machizu steps outside to intervene but he is being yelled at. In his voiceover, he describes a certain town shopping district and how small it is. But it is a lively and a festive town. He mentions how a son and a daughter of mochi makers lived opposite each other since birth. Machizu grabs a cup phone and places gum on it. He calls out Tomako's name from his window, she appears and he throws the cup phone over to her when a series of flashbacks of how they have both been together since birth even when Tomako lost her mother. This flashback shows when Machizu introduces the cup phone to Tomako as a means of communication to each other. The flashback is over, and Tomako is yet to grab the cup phone when the voiceover of Machizu still continues his narration of how no one realizes he is in love with his childhood friend, Tomako. The cup phone finally reaches Tomako, but she is unable to catch the cup. As the cup hit her head, she falls to the ground. Tomako gets up to adjust herself. She speaks to the cup and asks Machizu if he copies. The movie begins with Tomako at the sports arena singing while practicing her catch with her friend Midori-chan in their badminton club. Both girls throw the badminton stick to catch. Mito can catch hers but Tomako fails at catching the badminton stick, as the stick rather hits her on the head. Tomako wonders why she is so bad at catching no matter how hard she practices. Mito assures her that she will get it if she excitedly grasps the stick. Kanna-chan leaves the staff room. On her way she notices the information board that states there is a marching competition and it's still taking applicants. She immediately agrees to apply as she heads towards the staff room to make inquiries. At the sports arena, Mito announces to everyone that the practice is over and Tomako commends everyone for their good work. Kanna announces her presence at the sports arena. She hurriedly heads towards the girls, and she sits. Kanna then informs the girls about the competition she just found out about and how it might be good for the club. Mito asks Kanna what the competition is all about. Kanna replies that it is true she has an ambition that surpasses everyone in the club. Tomako nervously asks Kanna if she is still aiming to be the club president. Kanna tells her if she has the chance, she will run for the position. Her response surprises Mito. Kanna reaches for her backpack and brings out the flyer for the competition which in print says, Usajiyama Marching Festival. She then informs the girls that she wishes for the badminton club to participate in it and applications are still on. Mito expresses her concern that they haven't set up any preparations and they are not at a level where they can participate. Tomako then says, it might be fun but her shopping center festival is coming soon and she has to make new mochi. Kanna tells Tomako she wants to make memories. Her response surprises Tomako, then Tomako asks Kanna what she meant by making memories. Kanna explains that they are retiring before summer starts and she thought they should make some memories as the badminton club before it happens. Kanna explains all of her thoughts to the girls while she is heading to the podium. She gets to the podium and realizes how high the podium is. She climbs down from the stage and addresses herself as the president. They should give her the memories. Mito corrects her that she is the president. Kanna faces Tomako and begins to ask Tomako if she plans to waste her youth shaping mochi. She tells Tomako that she can shape mochi all her life but her time as a youth in the badminton club is limited. Mito nervously replies that Kanna's speech is so intense and she agrees that the competition might be good for the team. Kanna then asks the other three girls for their opinion and they all agree to her proposition. The girls excitedly call Kanna their president. Mito just sighs in frustration. Mito then encourages the team that for the next month, they should all combine their strengths and do their best. The team cheers in agreement. Later, Kanna shows the registration form to Mito and Tomako. She asks Mito to help with filling out the form. Mito then tells Tomako that she has to work on her catching skills. Machizu is watching and editing his video on his laptop. He clicks on a recorded video of Tomako and watches her smiling. His friends ask him how the editing is going as he has lost his focus on his editing while watching Tomako videos. Machizu replies to his friends instead that Tomako is sparkly and that it might be because it is the spring season. One of his friends notices a book on his table. He asks Machizu what the book is all about. Machizu tells him it is a brochure for a university in Tokyo and he is thinking of studying filmmaking. Machizu's friends ask if he is serious about his decision, which means he will be separated from Tomako. Machizu tells them he is aware and he is yet to decide. However, on their way home from school, Tomako and her friends are on the bridge asking each other questions about their future plans. Shiori questions the girls about what did they fill in their future survey forms. Tomako responds she fills her father's mochi store. Shiori says to Tomako that it's a good thing to take over her father's business. Kanna makes fun of Tomako that all that's in her head is mochi and wonders if life is mochi or mochi is life. Shiori then teases Tomako saying she has to find a mochi-making partner. Tomako tells her she hasn't thought that far ahead. The girls talk more about their future plans. Shiori intends to study English literature abroad. Kanna also wants to study architecture since she comes from a home of carpenters, while Midori is yet to decide on which university or what course to study. But she is certain she intends to go to a local university. After a long discussion, the girls bid their goodbyes and made promises to meet at school. Following that, Tamako realizes all her friends have made plans for their future and she hasn't. Tamako arrives at the shopping district, and is greeted by all the shop owners on her way to the music store. She sits across the counter and starts to talk about how she is a third-year high school student and she is aware of the changes around her. The music store owner explains to Tamako while serving her a cup of coffee that the present will always be different from the past and that's what makes life good and at the same time, sad. He also mentions the sadness, in turn, gives our everyday life some flavor, just like the coffee. Tamako sips her coffee and spits it out almost immediately after the music owner finishes his statements. Moreover, Machizu passes by the music store and heads home. He arrives home and meets his aunt who welcomes him. Shortly after, his dad opens the door to ask his aunt a question. Machizu's father notices him and he pretends not to see him when he greets him. Machizu asks his father what the problem is. His father ignores him and shuts the door. Machizu's aunt assures him that his father will come around soon enough. She gives her opinion of him going to Tokyo is a good opportunity to learn, explore and grow, but he has to inform Tamako about his plans. Machizu is in the room murmuring to himself that he is aware he has to inform Tamako about his plans. After a long thought, he decides he will tell her. Machizu opens his drawers, picks up the phone cup, and peeps at his window. He finds Tamako dressing up. He quickly leaves the window and he decides to wait for her. After a long wait, Machizu wakes up to realize it's late at night. He hurries to his window, and he notices a long hair by Tamako's room window which he assumes is Tamako. Machizu throws the phone cup over to her bedroom window. While the phone cup is going over, Machizu plans how he will relay the information to her. He then tells himself that if Tamako catches the phone cup, he will tell her. The phone cup reaches Tamako's window, and someone catches it which surprises him because he is certain the chances of Tamako catching the phone cup is 1% success rate. With excitement, Machizu speaks to the phone cup. He hears another voice instead. The voice says to Machizu, she is not Tamako, but her younger sister Anko. Machizu is shocked and he asks Anko what she is doing in her sister's room. Anko replies to Machizu that she came to get a new pencil lead as hers is finished. Machizu murmurs, is that right? With a look of disappointment then he gives Anko a hand gesture to pass the phone cup over to him. Machizu murmurs, his own heart is broken, with a sad face, then he falls to the ground and screams. His aunt announces it is time for dinner simultaneously. During dinner, Machizu makes up his mind to tell Tamako about his plans and feelings on his way to school and if it doesn't work out, he will end up using the phone cup again. Machizu is lost in thought while he is on his way to the bathhouse. Tamako sees him and calls for his name. Machizu jumps up in fright and throws all his bathing items to the ground, then Tamako helps him with it while she informs him that her sister Anko told her he tried to reach her using the phone cup earlier. Machizu timidly replies, yes he did. Anko then tells both of them to make use of their cell phones instead of using the cup phone. Machizu replies to Anko that the phone cup connects their hearts and it is easy to communicate with. Tamako suddenly remembers she has her badminton club practice the next day and she informs Machizu about it. She then informs Machizu that her club is entering a contest next month and she asks for his support. Machizu agrees to help her. Tamako heads to the bathhouse. Machizu sadly realizes he can't talk to Tamako as he plans to do. Inside the bathhouse, in their locker room, Tamako speaks to Anko that they are finally going to start making but mochi and if she thinks it's okay, Anko replies that their father is going to reject such a weird mochi. On her way to the bathroom, Tamako bumps into a lady and she instantly gets the idea of making a mochi. Tamako asks Anko for her opinion. The question embarrasses Anko. She asks Tamako what she is saying and she hurriedly leaves the bathhouse. Moreover, Machizu is brooding over a cup of hot tea about how he should inform Tamako about his travels and his feelings. At the school, Machizu is in the back building with his camcorder. Tamako is also at the building with her teammates who are excited that they got into the competition without any problem. Mito suggests they select a theme song, which she has already merged everyone's favorite song together as their theme song for the competition. Machizu is still at the back of the building filming his surrounding. His friends approach him and they exchange greetings. Machizu's friends ask him if he has told Tamako about his feelings. Machizu feigns ignorance and asks them what they are talking about. His friends knowingly reply, nothing. Mito comes out of the building to tell them to stop polluting the air with their noise. The boys leave the premises. In the classroom lobby, Tamako is cleaning the windows, and Machizu is staring innocently at her while leaning on a broomstick. Mito opens the window to greet Tamako. Mito catches Machizu staring at Tamako as she understands what is happening. Mito and Tamako are heading to the toilet. Tamako excuses herself while Mito waits for her outside the toilet. Machizu comes out of the male bathroom. He meets Mito and asks her when their practice will start. Mito replies, "It will start soon." Shortly after, Mito tells Machizu that he is being obvious. She tells him he keeps staring at Tamako every time and is that why he makes sure they have classes together. Machizu tries to deny Mito's allegations but Mito cuts him off and tells him she didn't realize at first until his need for him to be close to Tamako, but he always keeps his distance and that's what he will keep doing unless he informs Tamako how he feels about her. Machizu sadly replies to Mito he won't be checking her out anymore since he is going to Tokyo. But he will inform Tamako soon. Mito asks Machizu when will he tell her. Mito decides to play the game of rock paper scissors for them to decide when Machizu will tell Tamako, which unfortunately Machizu lost the game. Mito asks Machizu one more time. Machizu unexpectedly replies he will tell her today. Machizu realizes what he said as he covers his mouth and drops to the ground. Mito then tells Machizu he should make sure to Tamako at their agreed date. Tamako comes out of the toilet and finds Machizu weeping on the ground. She asks what's wrong with him and without a clue, she wonders if it's because he couldn't make it to the toilet. Mito then informs Tamako that Machizu has something to tell her. Tamako excitedly asks if Machizu wants to give her something. Machizu nervously tells Tamako he doesn't have to tell her anything today, but Mito reminds him of their game earlier and he couldn't deny his promise. Tamako then tells Machizu that they can talk after her practice and since he has film practice, they can both go home together and talk about it. Machizu is at his film studio lost in thoughts. His friends try to cheer him up as he came back to reality. His friends are worried for him. They assure him that he can come to them for anything as they all swear with a pinky promise. Tamako arrives at Machizu's studio. She tells him that she has come to get him and for some reason, her practice ended earlier than usual. Tamako informs Machizu she will be waiting outside for him. As soon as Tamako leaves, one of Machizu's friends taps his shoulder to tell him that no matter what happens between him and Tamako, he should make sure to show up at school the next day. Machizu and Tamako are at their favorite bridge park. Tamako then asks Machizu what is it he wants to tell her. She asks Machizu if it is about shopping or is it about Machi. Machizu replies it is none of those questions. Machizu then tells Tamako that it is somewhat related to him being called Machizu and besides when she talks about Machi, she thinks about Machi only and that's why she named him Machizu. Tamako gets distracted from their conversation. She makes a remark on the stepping stones in front of them as she reminds Machizu how he scares her back when they were still kids. Machizu has a flashback of how he pushes Tamako into the water from the stepping stone and he tells Tamako he remembers it also. Tamako apologizes for interrupting their conversation. Tamako interrupts Machizu again when she saw a stone in the water that looks like a woman's chest. Tamako remembers the big chest she saw at the bathhouse and she informs Machizu about it. Tamako immediately apologizes to Machizu. Machizu just sighs and tells Tamako it's okay. Machizu walks over to the stepping stone area. Tamako asks him where he is going as she hurries along to meet him. Tamako walks past Machizu. She picks up a stone in the flowing water and compares it to a machi. Tamako stares at the stone and says the machi is so small yet it makes all kinds of people happy. Flashbacks of Tamako's mom are shown as Tamako is still explaining how the machi is soft, white, gentle, and smells nice comparing the feelings of the machi to her late mom. Tamako wonders if she can be as good as how the machi is to people. Tamako apologizes to Machizu again for talking about herself. Tamako tries to go back to where they were sitting. Machizu calls her name suddenly and that startles Tamako as she almost falls into the water. Machizu grabs Tamako by the wrist and asks her if she is okay. Machizu is still holding on to Tamako's wrist. Emotions are running through him when he stares into Tamako's eyes. He finally summons the courage to tell Tamako that he will be traveling to Tokyo for his studies at the university and he has always been thinking of studying filmmaking. Machizu's statements surprise Tamako as she just stares blankly at him. Machizu seizes the opportunity to call Tamako's name and finally confesses his love to her. Machizu informs Tamako that he has always been in love with her since they were little kids. Tamako is in a state of shock as she falls into the stream. Machizu grabs her immediately from the water and asks Tamako if she is okay. Tamako is all wet from the fall and is flustered by what Machizu just said to her. She replies to Machizu by telling him she is honored. Tamako excuses herself and took off in her heels immediately, leaving Machizu standing and confused. Different emotions are running through Tamako's mind as she is running home and asking herself questions about how could her childhood friend be in love with her and will she reply to such a confession. Tamako arrives home drenched. She walks into her room and Enko asks her what happened. Tamako didn't respond. Tamako is on her bed when she notices her window curtains are open. She then quickly closed the curtains. Machizu arrives later at Tamako's house to drop off the school bag that she left when Tamako's father saw him. He hides. Tamako's father wonders why he is hiding from Machizu. Tamako sits on the floor behind her window. She lifts her hands to the air and she realizes she lost her contact lens during the fall. She held on to the hand Machizu grabbed and gets a flashback of when Machizu grabbed her hands. Her face are swollen red. Tamako is sitting on the front porch, lost in thoughts while staring at the rain. Anko shouts her name as she asks her what her problem is, because Tamako had forgotten what she is cooking and Anko had to go check it out. Machizu is in his room. He grabs his bag tightly to his chest area while sitting on his couch. He screams at the bag saying he has messed up. The next morning, Tamako apologizes to her father and grandfather for oversleeping. Tamako's grandfather asks her if she has a cold, and Tamako's father tells her to go back to sleep. Tamako insists she is fine. Tamako asks how many oak leaf machizu they are making. Tamako's father is upset as to why she keeps referring to their machi as machizu. Tamako's grandfather says they are making 50 machis. Tamako then asks if they are making the red and white machizu for the upcoming festival, and Tamako's father replies that it will be bad luck for them to make such. Tamako asks why, and her grandfather tells her it's because she will turn all the machi into machizu. Tamako gets flustered and her face is swollen red. She tries to make a machi, but she told her father and grandfather that she is still feeling cold. At school, Tamako and her teammates are practicing their catch. Tamako misses a catch and Kanna explains to Tamako the reasons why she keeps missing her catches. After their practices, on their way to the classroom, Tamako and the other teammates all agree to practice after school. Mito and Tamako enter their own class. Tamako notices Machizu from afar and she immediately turns her back and pretends to be stretching her body. Mito asks Tamako what she is doing, and Tamako replies that she is just practicing the catch illusion she taught her during their practice. Machizu is with his friends talking when he saw Tamako from afar and realizes what Tamako is doing. He felt sad. During their class activities, Tamako and Machizu sat next to each other throughout the whole day and didn't utter a word to one another. Mito notices both Tamako and Machizu don't talk to each other in the classroom. On their way for lunch, Mito asks Tamako if anything happened to her and Machizu yesterday. Tamako drops her lunchbox suddenly and nervously replies to Mito that nothing happened to them. Tamako and her friends get settled at their favorite sitting spot. Kanna mentions that Tamako's food is a bit off because there is no machi in her food. Tamako replies to Kanna that she is getting tired of machi. Kanna asks Tamako if she is getting the machi slump. Tamako asks what machi slump means. Kanna gives her example of when she was little and loved hitting her nails at anything. But suddenly, the smell of iron irritated her, and she stopped. Shiori then asks Tamako if it's because she has shaped too much machi. Mito tells the girls that Tamako used to hate machi when she was a little kid. Mito's statement surprises Shiori and Kanna. They ask Tamako why it happened. Tamako tells them Mito is right. She didn't like machi at first, and a flashback of when Tamako used to be called a dumpling by Machizu repetitively is shown. Shiori comments that both Tamako and Machizu were cute. Shiori asks how she ended up liking machi. Tamako replies that when she lost her mom and was depressed, machi spoke to her and she probably thinks it was her dad. Shiori says it is charming. Kanna reminds her that now she is having a machi slump and all she has to do is grasp the strength of her heart to fix it. Tamako tells them that's not the cause, but rather she has a cold. Mito assures Tamako that she will get better soon, and Shiori tells Tamako to not let it get worse. Young Tamako runs to meet her mom and informs her that her dad is bullying her. Tamako's mom assures her that it is because she is cute and he must love her. On her way home from school, Tamako is greeted by all her neighbors. Sayuri-san, a friend of Tamako, saw Tamako and greets her excitedly. She mentions to Tamako that she has always wanted to meet with Tamako. Tamako and Sayuri agree to meet at the bathhouse later in the evening. Tamako is excited as she walks home. She is greeted by one of the shop owners. Tamako is about to respond to the greeting when she notices Machizu. She stops and nervously greets Machizu while Machizu asks her if she will eat the extra snacks he got. Tamako immediately turns her back to Machizu and remembers the words of Kanna telling her to grasp the strength from her heart. Tamako repeats the words in her mind. She turns around to face Machizu and she nervously collects the snacks from Machizu's hands. She tells him sorry and thank you. Tamako then eats the snacks and realizes that it is hot. She faces the store owner to tell her the snacks are delicious even when it is hot, and she thanks her after. Tamako tells the store owner she will be back again soon. She took off in her heels hurriedly and left Machizu confused. At the bathhouse, Anko asks her sister Tamako if her cold is gone. Tamako tells her yes, it has gone and that she fought it off. On her way out, she meets Machizu again. Machizu calls her name, Tamako nervously greets Machizu, and she answers the greetings herself and left the bathhouse. Tamako is running away, she stops to catch her breath when she notices a bright star in the sky. Tamako is up early to begin her day making mochi. She meets her dad in the kitchen who is also up and preparing the mochi. Tamako greets her dad and her father responds. Tamako's father tells Tamako to go back and relax since she isn't feeling well and she doesn't have to help out in the shop today. Tamako's father then says it will be bad if she is injured. He says ever since her mother passed on, Tamako hasn't gotten a chance to rest. Tamako tells her father she will take him up on the offer. She then thanks her dad. Tamako goes to the street and her neighbor who sells flowers says hello. He wonders why Tamako is up so early. Shortly after, the other neighbors begin to open up their stores and they all greet Tamako one after the other. Tamako then tells herself that nothing has changed as she stops at Machizu's house and looks out his window. She thinks of how he used to greet her in the morning from there and she wonders if things are the same. Tamako is at the volleyball court in school. She does a flip and reaches for the bat and stick, but she fails to catch it. Mito arrives and sees her fall. Mito gives Tamako the bat and stick and they practice together. Tamako pauses before throwing the stick up to tell Mito that she can't seem to receive anything well, especially the bat and stick. Mito wonders if she means Machizu. Mito takes Tamako's hands and they both sit down to talk. Tamako asks Midori if she will listen to her. Mito answers yes. Tamako then tells Mito that Uji will be going to the university in Tokyo and also he confessed his feelings to her. Tamako also tells Midori that Machizu wasn't himself and that surprised her. Mito asks and then asks Tamako what she did. Tamako says she can't remember, but she knows she ran away. Tamako then explains to Mito that Machizu has always been with her from the beginning, they both were children of mochi makers and will always stick to each other, so she thought things will never change. Tamako tells Mito that Machizu has already thought of his future, yet he seems so distant and she doesn't know what to make of it. But after she has thought things through, she thinks Machizu is actually an amazing person but his bedroom window is always shut. Tamako asks Mito for advice on what to do, and Mito replies she doesn't know either. Mito tells Tamako that seeing her feeling down doesn't make her happy. Tamako apologizes to Mito. Machizu is on his way to school. He walks past Tamako's house wanting to see her but Enko shows up. Machizu and Enko both left for school. On their way, Machizu dashes across the bridge leaving Enko behind. Machizu screams at the top of his lungs, gasping for air in between. Enko comes to check on him. Machizu waves his hands at her reassuring her that he is okay. In the classroom, the teacher advises the students to be careful of the influenza disease. Tamako looks over to Machizu's side. Machizu moves his head a bit, and Tamako nervously removes her face away from him. Over time, each time Tamako sees Machizu from afar, she hides away from him continuously. Tamako sprains her ankle during practice and Mito worries if Tamako isn't in a good state for the competition she should just drop out. Tamako is outside sitting on a bench. Shiori-chan sees Tamako and asks her if her practice is over, which Tamako says yes and that she is just taking a break. Shiori informs Tamako that she is just on her way to the English cram school and she thinks she should participate in a homestay during summer vacation. Tamako tells her it's a great step to take. Shiori then says although nobody has agreed to take her in yet, instead of worrying about studying abroad, she might as well just try it out. Tamako stares at Shiori admirably as she explains to her that it is better to take risks, rather than stay worried. Tamako is on her way home. She arrives at the shopping district and stops to witness all the shop owners going about their own individual lives and making things happen for them. They all stop to greet Tamako as she walks past their shops. Tamako arrives home. She walks into her room, and exhaustingly places her head on the bed. Enko walks into her room to remind Tamako that she should always inform the house she has arrived from school. Tamako apologizes. Enko asks Tamako what is wrong. Tamako tells Enko that she just realized that everyone has their fair share of problems. Enko doesn't understand what Tamako means and she left Tamako's room. While staring at her fingernails on the edge of her bed, Tamako remembers something. She picks up a tape recorder and plays it on the radio. A music comes on, and while it was playing Tamako peeps at the window to check if Machizu's windows are up. Enko pops her head out into Tamako's room, which scares the nervous Tamako. Enko asks Tamako if that's the song their father sang for their mum when he asked her out and why is she listening to the song. Tamako's face is all blush red as she nervously couldn't respond to Enko's questions. She then pushes Enko out of her room and tells Enko she wishes to be alone. Machizu is in his room, peeping out of his window as well to check if Tamako's room window is open. His aunt calls him to buy tofu and Machizu steps outside to go and get them. On his way, he stops at the music store. He walks in and Machizu asks the store owner if Tamako has been coming over to the store. The owner replies no. Machizu sighs heavily. The store owner offers Machizu a cup of tea. Machizu asks for sugar and the store owner gives him. Machizu had a convincing thought that his confessions must have been too sudden as he sighs heavily in return. Then the music store owner tells Machizu that being a youth must be tough as they don't even wait for a spoonful of sugar to dissolve and that a bitter regret is the proof of that, but bit by bit, they get a taste of the bitter sweetness. Machizu drops his spoonful of sugar, as he drinks the tea without it. Machizu strolls to the bridge park. He sits by the river bank to enjoy the scenery. He then finally realizes how bitter the tea was. He goes back to the street to get the tofu. On his way home he finds an ambulance in front of Tamako's home and he saw his dad and aunt standing in front of their house. Machizu asks what happened. His father explains that Tamako's father choked on too much mochi and it is nothing serious. As soon as Machizu's father finishes his explanations to Machizu, he realizes he wasn't supposed to talk to Machizu. Machizu's aunt scolds Machizu's dad for being immature at times like this. Tamako comes out of her house in tears while her grandpa is being strolled into the ambulance. Machizu's dad asks Tamako where her father is. She tells him he is out for a delivery. Machizu's aunt assures Tamako that her grandpa is fine. One of the paramedics asks who is going to accompany the grandpa. Enko says it will be her and Tamako. Tamako notices Machizu. She calls his name. Machizu volunteers to follow them to the hospital as Tamako looks up at Machizu with her teary eyes. Machizu's dad, his aunt, Tamako and Enko are with Tamako's grandpa in the hospital. Tamako's grandpa apologizes for making them all worried. Tamako's father barged into the room. He sees his father and immediately he is relieved to see him alive. Tamako's father steps out of the room. He sees Machizu seated and they both have a conversation. Tamako's father apologizes for the worries, and Machizu tells him it is fine. Tamako's father remembers Machizu is going to Tokyo. He then suddenly remembers when he used to have drinks with Machizu's father. Machizu apologizes again. Meindai Tamako's father tells Machizu that he is a man, but wherever he goes he should always come back home. Tamako arranges to stay behind after her grandpa is officially admitted. Machizu's dad offers to stay as well, but Tamako insists they go home and she tells her dad to drive them home. Machizu's aunt then tells Machizu to go home with Tamako via the bus once they are done. Upon hearing that, Tamako's dad disapproves of the arrangements, but Machizu asks him who will drive them home. Tamako then thanks everyone for their help, and the group went home. Tamako and Machizu are now seated in the hospital hall. Tamako apologizes to Machizu for causing a lot of trouble for him and who knows what she should have done if he didn't follow her to the hospital. Machizu suddenly apologizes to Tamako for the other day and he tells Tamako that it is okay if she just pretends it never happened. Machizu then suggests they should just go back to the way it was before his love confessions. Tamako is back home and she is eating dinner. Enko asks her a question, but Tamako is lost in her thoughts. At school, Tamako still hasn't gotten her baton catch yet, but Mito tells her that she heard about her grandfather's incident and it will be hard on her and she understands, but her inability to get the practices right might create a problem. Kanna informs the girls that she has come up with a solution and that is to make a glove filled with strong magnets and she will also place a magnet on the baton stick. As Kanna was explaining, she spots Shiori. Shiori meets up with the girls. Tamako finally tells the girls what happened between her and Machizu. She then asks the girls what it means for someone to tell them to forget what happened. Shiori then explains to Tamako that it is because she likes Machizu and she is yet to respond to him, that's why he told her to forget about it. Kanna then comes up with a plan for Tamako to inform Machizu how she feels too, but all the plans were futile as Tamako was unable to walk up to Machizu to let him know about her feelings. The girls were at Machizu's doorstep, but they all ran away when he opens up his door. Mito sees Machizu and tells him her opinion of him has changed because she didn't think he will confess his feelings towards Tamako. Tamako is in her room listening to the music on the tape. Tamako calls for Enko, and she then gives Enko her middle school old uniform because Enko will be in middle school next year. Enko appreciates her sister for her generosity. Tamako then asks Enko if she is scared of change. Enko asks Tamako what she means. Tamako tells Enko that the world as she knows changes all of a sudden. A voice is heard from the tape recorder suddenly, and Tamako tells Enko that it is their mother. Tamako's mum is singing for Tamako's father. Enko says her singing is bad but it is beautiful to hear. After listening to their mother singing, Tamako then decides to go back to work the next day. Tamako joins her father and grandpa to make mochi the next morning. On her way to school, Tamako meets up with Mito and tells Mito that she feels like she can catch the baton stick in the competition today and she apologizes to Mito for making her worried. Tamako then tells Mito that she will also give Machizu a proper reply. During the competition, the group perform exceptionally well. When it was time to throw the baton, Tomoko unexpectedly catches the baton stick, and they were applauded for their good presentation. Machizu is on his laptop, he sees Tomoko's videos, and he deletes them. He then goes to the empty trash can icon, he contemplates whether to permanently delete all her videos or not. He just closes his laptop instead. Tomoko receives a call from the school that there won't be any activities for the time being because of the influenza disease outbreak, and she should also inform Machizu about it. Tomoko meets with Machizu's aunt to collect the cup phone. She asks if Machizu will notice it's missing, and Machizu's aunt replies that he wouldn't notice it gone because he is watching movies with his friends. Tomoko is in her classroom early, waiting for Machizu to walk through the door. She hears footsteps and the door opens. It was Mito. Mito tells Tomoko that she came by her house but she was told she went off to school. Mito asks Tomoko if she informed Machizu about the disease outbreak, and she replies no. Mito then tells Tomoko that Uji Machizu won't be coming to school. She tells Tomoko that she ran into him on her way to school. Mito tells Tomoko that Machizu is off to Tokyo and it is quite emotional for Machizu to transfer all of a sudden since he wishes to study there. Mito then tells Tomoko that he is taking the Kujisuji train now to Tokyo and she make it in time to meet him if she hurries. Tomoko thanks Mito and hurriedly heads for the train station. Kanna meets Mito in the classroom and wonders what she is doing in school. Kanna explains to Mito that she is in school to make a new cabinet for the class. Kanna then asks Mito what's wrong with Tomoko because she saw her running on her coming. Mito says she told Tomoko a white lie about Machizu transferring to Tokyo but rather he is just going to take entrance exams there. Kanna says it's an illusion and she likes Mito's thinking. Machizu is at the train station, heading to his train. Tomoko arrives shortly after. She searches for Machizu while holding the cup phone but she keeps missing him. She looks around panting heavily, but no sign of him. Machizu's train arrives, he is about to enter the train. Tomoko spots him. She calls his name the first time, but he didn't hear it. She then screams his name multiple times. Machizu turns to find Tomoko staring at him with little tears in her eyes. Tomoko then runs to him and screams for him to wait. She then asks Machizu why he is leaving for Tokyo and it is too far. Tomoko tells Machizu that they have been together since childhood, and she hasn't even responded to confessions yet. Machizu is still shocked to see Tomoko at the train station as he couldn't find the right words to express himself. Tomoko then throws the cup phone at Machizu. Machizu is confused about what to do. He takes a deep breath and throws one of the cup phone at Tomoko. Tomoko catches and places the cup in front of her mouth, and utters the words, "I love you, Machizu." Machizu couldn't believe his ears as he gasps for air.